Welcome back to Turning Pages. Today we have John Jantunen with us. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's good. Jantunen is
Jantunen, and he's the author of a novel, Cipher, which is a crime novel which takes place in Regina, Saskatchewan. Tell us a bit about yourself, John.
Okay, I have been writing for quite a few years. I started my first novel when I was 15, and quickly decided that I didn't have the knowledge of the human psychology, I think, to finish that. So I started writing screenplays, and I wrote screenplays for many years, and wrote about 20 of them, and wasn't finding too much traction in the film industry, and decided to go back to writing novels. And this Cipher is actually my second novel. My first one is a book called Falling Over Standing Still, which we published through Volcamus Press.
Okay.
And having finished that one, I was kind of, all geared up to write another one. So I sat down and wrote Cipher.
And we'll talk about that in a second,
Right.
but I'm intrigued about the one you wrote when you were 15.
Actually, it was a science fiction novel. It was called, and it was the cheesiest thing you ever saw in your life. I was reading a lot of Philip K. Dick back in those days, and Stephen King and whatnot, and it was very similar to some of the Bachman books. I was thinking to myself, that he had the Running Man. I mean,
Yeah.
and the Long Walk, I think, were the two that really impressed me. So I figured I could sit down and write that, and it was called Guilty Until Proven Dead, and it was just about this, they're living in this kind of a city that I later learned was very much like Judge Dredd, this kind of giant metropolis that was run by this dictator, and he had, through this series of circumstances, similar to kind of what happens in Brazil, actually, where the bug lands on the paper,
Yeah.
and they have these giant these robots, these kind of very similar to the Judge character, in Judge Dredd, and they were the crime the crime fighters, and his name got entered in one of these, and he was basically he became on the hit list for this, and it became him having to flee from this and starting to realize live the life of the going down to the sewers and starting to realize where these most vulnerable people are. So it was a story about him kind of coming to terms with the fact.
You identified your influences for that novel. What would your influences have been for Cipher?
Well, I've come a long way since then. I stopped reading Stephen King when I was 18. I won't get into it. I tend to get a little angry when I start talking about Stephen King, but I started reading books by John Gardner and Graham Greene and Somerset Maugham, and getting into those. Those were kind of the seminal influences, where I started realizing, oh my God, there's like a world outside of this, the world of Stephen King and popular literature. So Graham Greene, who I kind of came in contact through my reading of Somerset Maugham, he wrote a book called The Third Man, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Yeah. And I read that a couple of times, and I actually took a course when I was in school, and it was dealing with Hitchcock and Orson Welles, and one of the films they showed in the course was The Third Man. I mean, because he was one of the stars, didn't direct that one, but having read that, and I started thinking it was a very simple story. I mean, the iteration of the story is that it's just this guy he's a writer of pulp westerns. He worships this character named Harry Lime. They'd gone to school together. Harry Lime had gone off to war, become a big, what he thought was this hero in war. He was now in Vienna after the war, and he wanted to go, telling him to come. You come out to Vienna, we live, basically party with me, we'll have a good time. So he goes out there to Vienna, and he meets his friend Harry Lime, and they have a drink, and then Harry is summarily run over and killed, and he begins to believe that it was murder. And as he's investigating this murder, he begins to realize, oh my God, Harry Lime wasn't this hero. He was like stealing penicillin and from like orphanages and selling on the black market and like giving them like saline solution and stuff. And like he was like an evil,
terrible
He was
man.
terrible person. So I thought, like, that's interesting. That's an interesting story. And I thought it was that story would be easily transferable to originally Calgary, I thought, where there was this, the oil rush going on right now, and I thought that would be an interesting kind of where all these different worlds are coming together, and all these people from all the different provinces and all over the world are being brought to this place. And that's kind of the backdrop, as there's this native gang crisis that's going on, and set against that, the native gang crisis, is the story of Curtis Mays, this young white middle-class kid who has almost unnatural ability to run with a football in his hand. He's a running back. He's the star running back. Now, all, of course, these expectations building up at him, I mean, it creates a circumstance where, and a lot of it is, through his father, through the eyes of his father, who's living vicariously through him. The pressure gets too much for him. He graduates from school. He basically says, "I can't do this. I'm going off to. He joins the army and he goes off to serve in Afghanistan. He's got this friend named Terrence Bell. They were neighbors, and Terrence Bell is kind of the opposite from him. He's from a good family. Terrence Bell his father is an alcoholic, a wife abuser, and all these things. And not a very nice guy. They form a friendship that this kind of, it's almost like soldiers in battle. They form this kind of friendship, that you can only form when you're a kid, I guess, or you're at war, almost like and Terrence is he has genuine affection for he's in love with Curtis, and Curtis is trying to pretend that his best friend isn't in love with him. Anyways, but he on the last night before he goes off to war, and I can't even spoil it. But anyways, something happens and Terrence takes the blame for it, and Curtis goes off to war, still the hero, and Terrence goes off to jail.
And that's a good spot to leave the anticipation.
All right.
Yeah. So very quickly, can you tell us a bit about Volcamus Press, which operates out of Guelph?
Right. Volcamus Press is an organization that a friend of mine, Jeremy Luke Hill, and myself started about 3 years ago. Started pretty much this way, right here. What we're having started over conversation, just us talking about the books we loved and about writing and about the process, and started trying to think of and I hadn't been published at that time, and I'd written Cipher, and I'd written the other book as well, and trying to think of how you can generate interest within a local literary culture, very influenced, in a way also by like Hemingway and the Fitzgerald and this kind of the Paris of the post World War I period, and bringing together this kind of culture of writers, because there's an incredible amount of writers and creativity going on in Guelph. So we wanted a way to kind of focalize all that creative energy in one thing, and to create an organization that ultimately would be there to publicize and support local writers.
In 3 years, you've gathered together quite a bunch of authors together.
It's amazing, and most of this has to do with Luke. Now, my title is the ambassador to Friends of the Press, and my job is to go out there and to talk to young writers and to talk to other writers and to, as I say, make these connections. Luke does he's got the bones of the operation. He puts out a newsletter with every single literary event. One of the things that we've been doing is we partner with the Guelph Public Library, and he's been very instrumental in going out and doing outreach and getting creative writing teachers, high school teachers, to get their kids to enter in the teen writing contest. So last year we was the first year we started that. We had 18 submissions, and this year we had 42 submissions.
Awesome. Yeah.
So we've got this, and so I'm one of the judges as well, and I'll be emceeing the event this year at the library. And we have, and one of the other things we've done is we're kind of fashioned ourselves a little bit after the DIY nature of the independent music scene, right? How do you generate excitement, these kind of local scenes? So one of the things we're doing is we like to match up writing with music and writing with art, and we like to bring these different fields together, right? And so we'll be having a young local musician perform there, and every year we do in October we do what we call a book bash, where we get all the authors in Guelph that have published over the last year to come together, provide tables for their books, and opportunity for them to plug their books. So we started that last year, and we had 20 writers and about 120 people.
Oh, that's great. So I'm assuming you have a website somewhere to direct.
Volcamus, yeah. So if you just put in Volcamus Press, Google search, and it'll come up there. So. Okay,
great. So the book again is Cipher. It's from ECW Press.
That's correct.
And John Jantunen?
Yes.
Yes. I mispronounced it again, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, Jantunen, I say, it's.
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for me.
Thanks. We'll be back after the break with some more Turning Pages. Thank you.